Hey guys, so last week I dropped off a desk at my retailer, and somewhere in transit it had gotten a scratch in it. Actually, it wasn't even a scratch, it was like a pretty bad gouge. And I'm building cabinets in my shop right now, so I didn't really have room to bring it back and refinish it. So I left it there and I went back a few days later with all my refinishing equipment and I fixed the scratch on site and I filmed it. But I was working outside and I was in and out of clouds, so the lighting wasn't very good. There was a lot of shadows, and I'll show some of that footage. But I just wanted to give a demo here in the shop on how to remove scratches. And there's a pretty good, I guess you could call it a hack. It's been in the industry for a long time, but it's a pretty good way to get scratches out depending on what kind of scratch it is and then what species of wood it is. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't work at all, but I'm going to show you. And we're just going to give this old walnut slab a refinish. All right, so let's get going. All right, so this is a walnut top to a console table that had warped and I had to put a new top on it. So I put a scratch in here, if you can see it right there. It's a pretty deep scratch. And we're going to go through the steps on how to remove this. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look to see what type of scratch you have in your material. Now this one is very rounded. It's like a dent. It didn't damage the fibers of the wood at all. It just more or less pushed them down. It dented them in. And this is important because if it's more of a scratch where the fibers are torn, this next little hack won't work as well. And it's also good to kind of assess what kind of finish is on the piece as well. Something that's finished in a more waterproof finish, this hack isn't going to work as well. So if it's like a polyurethane, it's probably not going to work that well unless it's worn a bit. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to take a little bit of moisture and we're going to apply it to this scratch. We're going to put a towel over it, and then we're going to hit it with a hot iron, not with no steam on. If you have the steam on your iron, it might raise the grain in other areas of your piece, which is going to make it more work to refinish it. And what I like to do sometimes too is just put a little tape around the area, just so you minimize damaging the rest of the table. This table is garbage, but I'm just going to do this to show you. So now what I like to do is I like to take a Q-tip and just apply some moisture in there with a Q-tip. Now I don't have high hopes for this coming out because this is polyurethane on here and it's in pretty good shape. So this water is probably not going to get into the pores of the wood, but we'll give it a try anyway. So I got my moisture there. I'm going to put my towel over it, and I'm just going to add a little bit more on top of the towel so that it steams in. So hot iron, no steam, and we're just going to do this for a couple of seconds here. And like I said, I don't think this is going to work, but it might. All right, so that should be enough. Oh, look at that. It might be hard to see. You know what, let me hit it just a little bit more. And I apologize, I know this is hard to see on the camera. But let me just give it a little bit more heat here. And this is actually looking pretty good, which is surprising considering there's polyurethane on here. Look at that. So I'm going to take the tape off just so you can see it a little better. But it's almost all the way gone. It's definitely an improvement over what it was. I can still feel a little bit, but that's not bad. Okay, now It's not bad, but it's still not out 100%. So the next thing I would do is I'm going to take a little sandpaper. It's 180, and that's usually what I sand to on my tables when I've finished them. I usually sand to 180. So I'm just going to sand, and again, you should put the tape here. I'm not going to put it back right now, but if you don't want to risk, scuffing up a larger area, you can tape it off. But I'm just going to scuff up inside that scratch there, that gouge, and I'm going to sand the finish off. That's all I'm looking to do, is sand the finish off. So that should be enough. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to take a Q-tip. I'm going to apply a little water in there. I'm going to hit it with the iron again. All right, there we go. It's hot enough now. Just work it back and forth. Take a peek. Oh, now it's almost completely out. It's almost flush. Yes, that is looking really good. Now, where this technique works best is on the hard wax finishes, because now what you can do, like I said, this is poly, but I'm going to grab a little finish. All right, so I'm back with a little finish now, and I'm just going to put a drop here. And this is just hard wax oil. All of the hard wax oils work the same. This is tried and true. I usually use Rubio Monocoat. Still waiting for my sample 73. But here we go. Like I said, right now this is oil on a poly finish, so it's not going to match perfectly. But if this was a hard wax finish, that would have come out really nicely. I'm just going to take the camera off the mount here and move in a little closer. So you can barely see where that scratch was now. And like I said, this was a rounded scratch, so it comes out, it raises back up pretty nicely because the fibers aren't damaged. It's when you have those gouges that it's a little bit harder to repair. So I'm going to show some footage of the desk because that had a really big gouge in it, and I had to refinish the whole top because I had to sand it. I had to sand the scratch out. I mean, I did do the iron technique, and the iron technique did work for the most part, except for where the fibers were damaged. Okay, so here we are on location, and this is a pretty substantial gouge. The outer edge here, the fibers are just kind of crushed down, but as you move towards the center, they're torn. So the center doesn't come out very well with this ironing technique, but the first bit here comes out pretty good. So I'm just gonna throw a wet towel over it, hit it with the iron for a couple of seconds or so. It's almost gone.
What's that?
It's almost gone.
No
Except
way.
for the very end where it did hit.
Will it suck back in?
Nah. The very end has a little bit of a tear in it.
Yeah, I know. We saw that, right?
Check it out. Rub your finger over it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Except for that little bit.
Yeah.
I can get that out with sandpaper though. And that was Jerry, the owner of Exotic Woods USA, where I sell some of my furniture. Now, since those fibers are torn and I can't get it out with the iron, I am going to sand the finish off this whole table. I'm not going to touch the river at all, but I am going to sand both sides of the live edge there. Now, again, if it was just that one spot and the iron took it out, I would just refinish it, or not refinish it. I would just hit that spot with the hard wax oil and work it in, and you wouldn't be able to see it. It would just blend right in perfectly. Especially since this was finished not that long ago. You know, if you have some age to it, it might not match as much because the finish may oxidize and whatnot, depending on where it is in the house, if the sun's hitting it. So maybe in some cases it might not match 100%, but when it's fresh like this, it would have matched no problem. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what it looks like at each grit. So this is 150 now, and it's getting pretty tough to see already. This is a water pop after sanding at 150.
Oh yeah, that looks nice.
This is sanding at 180 now. And now we are applying the finish after sanding at 180. Okay, so that was the field repair, and it only took about an hour and a half or so to finish. Now I just sanded, this is back to the console table now, and I just sanded the poly off that one little area so we can do a couple of more demonstrations here. And I'm just going to show you how nice this works. So I'm just going to take this Sharpie, and I just pushed it in to the fibers there. So, I mean, I can definitely feel that. That's a pretty deep dent in there. And I'm just going to show you again how nicely this comes out. I'm just going to put a little dab of moisture on there. And actually, that probably will help you see it a little bit more. So a little dab of moisture, the towel, the iron. There, look at that. I mean, that is gone. I mean, you can see there's no marks there. It is gone. And then I'm just going to hit it with some finish just so that you can see that you still don't see it after you put the finish on. First, let me just hit it lightly with 180 just to kick that grain down, because the grain did raise a little bit. So that's it. That's all you need to do. Another towel that's dry, just wipe the dust off. A little finish, too much finish. We'll work that in. And look at that, look how beautiful that looks. That is beautiful. I mean, you can still see the lines that the white pad made in the finish because the finish is still wet. I didn't buff it off. All right, so it's just been a couple of minutes here. I'm just gonna wipe the excess off just so I can show you with the camera again. You don't see all those lines from all the wet finish. All right, can you see how nice that looks? No scratch. It was right here. And I mean, it looks great. It looks great, and that took minutes, literally just minutes. So yeah, it's a great little hack. Don't be afraid to give it a try. And if you are, if you do have a nice piece that's finished nicely still, and that just has a single scratch in some area, just tape everything off and just make sure your moisture is in that one little area. And make sure your iron doesn't come in contact with the raw wood. Make sure the towel covers the whole area, and it usually works pretty well. All right, I'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks.